got you interested.
Member for Chestermere-Rocky View has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome.
I was very curious to hear the end of that.
I'll be back up. I'm the new Joe for the day.
I would very much at some point like to hear it. Mr. Chair, it's an honor for me to rise and speak to Bill 8, the amendment that we're discussing, which is effectively repealing Bill 50. Interesting to see democracy in action, too, as we discuss it. I guess to those of you that have been here all night, I hope it's effective in the long run. I mean, I guess that's the purpose, although one could question how effective it is at this hour. So let's go back to the amendment. Mr. Anglin to move that Bill 8, Electric Utilities Amendment, be amended by striking out Section 3 and substituting the following. Section 41(1) repealed, the following substitute. A transmission facility designated as critical transmission infrastructure under 41(1) of this Act, as it read immediately prior to the coming into force of the Electric Utilities Amendment Act 2012, shall be reviewed by the Commission, which shall consider whether the facility for which approval is sought and will be required to meet the present and future public convenience and need. And I think I'll probably come back to it a little bit more because I've got 20 minutes. But we'll leave it at there for now. So on discussing this amendment, particularly where this bill is concerned, it strikes me that the government went around this province and spoke to Albertans and listened to landowners. And I believe that the consensus generally on Bills 19, 24, 36, and 50 were to repeal the bills. And so that is effectively what we're doing today. I guess Bill 8 is a repeal of Bill 50. That is a good thing. But it's like the government doesn't have a rearview mirror. It can't see what's already been approved is wrong, which is what this amendment, I think, tries to correct. It does need an assessment. And it does need a cost benefit for Albertans. Now, I know that we're all here to represent our constituents, and I know that we all want to do the best job that we can. This line is coming right through Chestermere-Rocky View, and I wish I had, I do have a file back at the office. Maybe if these all-nighters continue, I'll have to bring it in and read a few of the emails and submit them. But I would just say that my inbox has been filled over the last 6 months and even during the campaign of people questioning the lines justifiably and saying, how can we move these through my property if we haven't proven that they are needed and they're not in good value for Albertans? They do have, very legitimate points when they ask those questions, and as their MLA, I find it quite frustrating that I have to say to them, well, we do have Bill 8 coming through, which will repeal Bill 50, which means the government will never do that again. And they say, yeah, but the lines are coming right through my property. Yeah. I don't care if you never do it again. I don't want you to do it right now. So I'm not able to give them the answer that they need. All I'm able to say to them is we'll do, I guess, exactly what we're doing right now, and that is standing up, having a discussion about it. In the early morning hours. It seems easy for me and others that actually did get some rest last night. I can see how tempers get short and patience becomes thin when you have no sleep. Sleep deprivation is actually a form of torture in some places. So I applaud all of you that stayed up all night long. I'm sure we'll all have our chances, and including myself, to do it again the way things are going. $16 billion is an awful lot of money to spend, and I guess it's nearly 50%, as somebody's pointed out, of what our annual budget would be, our annual expenditures. And I think it seems reasonable that if you're going to spend that kind of money, you would want to qualify that it makes sense to do so. And so that is the point that we continue to come back to. Is there a proper needs assessment done? Is there value for our money? Is there a regulatory approval process? The answers to all of this are no, which is a big problem, and you'll understand why constituents in many ridings are questioning why it's going through. The repealing of the bill is good. But if we just come back to, the point of the whole thing, for all the people that debate power, like the member from Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House Sundry, like the honourable member who's riding, I've forgotten, Vegreville over here, that Banff Cochrane stood up, and thrilled that members on both sides do. I guess the point I would come back to is, why repeal the bill if it made any sense? We're repealing it because it didn't. So effectively what we're saying is we'll never do it again, but we're going to do it this time. And that's the problem. Just take all the power debate aside, and I know there's a huge debate, and since I have 20 minutes, I'll get into that at some point too. But that's the one that people are stuck on. That's the one that Albertans don't understand. If we've said it doesn't make sense, if we've said it was wrong, how can we look at people and say we're going to do it anyway? Because effectively we said we'd never do it again. We recognize we're making a big mistake. We're sorry. But please forgive us this time while we push it through. It's, I mean, again, it's like the colleague from Airdrie spoke to when the bill was first introduced. It's sort of like your child, taking something from a store.
Fresh meat.
It's sort of like your child, taking something, stealing something from a store, and then saying to them, you can't steal something. That's illegal. It's breaking the law. That's not how we operate. And then your son's saying, yeah, but you know what? If I could just keep this, I'll never do it again. Well, it's a terrible message, and that's how Albertans are looking at it. It's not how parents operate, and it certainly shouldn't be how government operates. And if government wants to put it all to rest, all that has to happen is an independent needs assessment to show that two things. We need the power that they say we need, and that we're getting value for our buck. And neither one of those things have taken place. So that is a big problem. The point about the committee, the independent committee, the supposedly independent committee that looked at some of the information as to whether this was needed, I believe it was the Critical Transmission Review Committee, a four-person committee. Well, one of the people on that committee is the former VP of the government party. How could you ever look at that as independent? And again, I just say with great respect that the people look at that and say, even if your intention was true, if your intention was honorable, you could never make that sale because there's bias. It's clear. I mean, take any example you want. If you want to investigate something and you assign one of your own to investigate it, it's clearly biased. And Albertans see that and understand that. And they certainly do in Chestermere-Rocky view. And I think that many other ridings as well. And maybe it is good that these things are discussed for as long as they are, because I think it forces people to look at an amendment like the member has passed and say, or is trying to pass, excuse me. Is it going to pass? Probably not. Yeah, you'd like that, I know. Honourable Minister of Finance, I know you would. Well, we will at some point, I think. But people want to pay attention when these things go on all night. I have a sneaky idea as to how the media operates, and they'll be watching, saying, "What are our tax dollars giving us?" And then they'll look at some of these issues a little closer, because someone in the newsroom will say, "Well, what was that amendment from the honourable member?" Well, they won't call him an honourable member. They'll say, "What was the amendment from the guy from Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House Sundry?" Then they'll read, for instance, this section: "The benefit that may accrue to Albertans as a result of the new critical transmission infrastructure." Should have read section 2 first. "In determining present and future public convenience and need under subsection 1, the Commission shall consider the benefit that might accrue to Albertans as a result of the new critical transmission infrastructure." And then some reporter will cross his eyes and say, oh my gosh, I've got to look at this today, and this is very complicated. How am I going to do it? And then they'll start to make a few phone calls. And one side will say, well, we need power, the lights are going to go out. And the other side will say, well, I don't think we do need power, the lights aren't going to go out. And then they're forced to find out from an independent expert whether or not it's true.
Or an accountant.
Or an accountant. Shot across the bow there, I think. I do appreciate that whatever that member does, he seems to do with a smile. So, so don't mock too heavily. We do enjoy that, at least.
I know I do.
And I would also mention, I think he's the best greeter during introductions of anybody in this House, without question. That is sensational. Another point to this amendment: whether the need of Albertans for critical transmission infrastructure can be met by the application of non-wire solutions or in any less expensive but equally satisfactory way, such as upgrading an existing line, building electrical generators closer to the load, and programs to reduce the load. Well, I don't claim to be a power expert. I don't think most of us do, Mr. Chair. But I do think it's a fair question to ask: what would be the most efficient way to build power should we need it? And what I've heard from people is that there are a lot better ways that we might do it, that we might look at alternate ways besides what's being proposed, these billions of dollars in projects. But that's part of the independent needs assessment that we did not do. And that is clearly wrong. So the amendment calls for, in this bill, to make sure that we are doing a proper needs assessment, to make sure before we build. That's okay. I understand. Now, I also understand where this amendment calls for accountability, that we pay for the lines, the companies own them, and they are guaranteed a 9% rate of return. So this is an interesting one. I wonder how it would be explained to your constituents, those that are invested in the issue. If you said to a farmer, for instance, tell you what, why don't you go build some fences? We're going to pay for all of the posts, the wire, the wire stretchers, staples, nails, whatever it is you use. We're going to pay for all of that for you. Top of the line equipment too. The very, very best, sir. Whatever you need. And we'll pay you for them. And the more you build, the more we'll pay you. And we'll guarantee you a giant rate of return that you can't get anywhere in today's economic world, of 9% or better. Now, I often knock the farmer from Little Bow in good fun. But I think it's safe to say if somebody said that to him, he'd be out with a fencing maul pounding in posts the next day, just about everywhere he could. And that's what we've done, effectively. And it's not right. And, we're going to pay for that eventually. We are going to pay for it because the companies are going to need to recoup all of that money since they're making the money from it. So it comes back to the people that put us in these chairs, and those are the ratepayers, whom we should be here representing. If big business is paying, and the member from Little Bow said $10,000 or $12,000 a month,
just in transmission,
just in transmission costs. Imagine if that doubles. Now, you and I at home. And this is important regardless, of your take on the issue and where you're going to vote and everything else. But just give me this 2 minutes. If your bill doubles at home on the transmission costs, that's not a very big deal, perhaps, to some of us. I'll argue that it is for some in a second. But you can live with that potentially. But if you're paying $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a month on this kind of costs, and it doubles, what you're saying to business is, Go and operate elsewhere. And I think that's what a lot of the big businesses are saying, is you're potentially driving us out of the market. And this amendment is trying to prevent that, Mr. Chair. If their power bills are doubling just on transmission costs, and they're running an efficient business, and they're trying to make a company work, well, clearly any business with effective managers and anybody that's interested in the bottom line is going to look to alternatives. And those alternatives may be out of province. And you look at what's going on in Saskatchewan, and they're doing a lot of things right there right now. I mean, they've got the riders. That's not right, but everything else, everything else. The Honourable Justice Minister and I agree wholeheartedly on that point. Go Stamps, go on the weekend. But they do have the. Yeah, I'll get back to the amendment, Mr. Chair. I'll get back. I promise. You know, I know, like most of you, I'm just thrilled for Kevin Glenn. He deserves a shot, for sure. So Saskatchewan is doing a lot of things right, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair. I thought maybe you were doing your Clint Eastwood impression there for a second. Thank you. Thank you. So they're attracting business, and darn it, we're all proud of this province we live in. It's the greatest province in this country. I've been blessed to live in 6 of them and move around the country, and you know, all of the wonderful things we could say about Canada, I know we all would, but we want people here. The Alberta Advantage exists because we do things right. And I'm fearful that what we're saying to big business is move a little bit east and you can operate and save some money. So I hear that from people all the time in industry and in big business. On the point of your personal bill going up, I made this point, I think, yesterday or the day before or the day before that or whenever it was that we talked about this last. You know, if you're living on the edge financially, and you're not making 156, which was 145, if you're not making that, and your family is struggling, and you don't have the luxury of an 8% hike on your pay, it's tough to make ends meet. And so what the amendment is calling for. The amendment is calling for
it's a new map.
is accountability, so that seniors that are struggling to pay their bills don't wind up in a situation where they can't pay them, and those that are on the edge of their financial survival are still enjoying the Alberta Advantage. We're concerned, which is why we put this amendment forward. We're concerned that we're going to get to a point where our bills are going up substantially. And if we do get to that point, we're going to have a big problem in Alberta, and so are you. And I know that you, as government, do not want that, because I know you don't like it when the public's mad at you. And they will be mad at you when this happens, and justifiably so. And then we will say, we were concerned about it and warned about it. You've been here all night. It must be tough to take, I know. As I look at the minister saying, really? We want Albertans to be able to make ends meet, and our concern is this will not. When the member from Rimbey Rocky Mountain House Sundry puts this amendment forward, he's got so many points, and it's so technical to most of us that sometimes the message gets lost in all that he's delivering. But to those that really understand it, it doesn't. They understand what it is that he's saying. And I go back to, some of the things that came out, in the election campaign when Bill 50 was being discussed in town halls, in community centers, in gymnasiums. I go back to
Somebody had to go to public accounts.
We canceled.
I go back to those discussions, Mr. Chair. And, you know, one of the things that was raised...
The honourable member, I'll recognize the member
Was
for... I'll recognize the member for Medicine Hat.
Thank you very